Hello and welcome to Baseball Barbacast, the only baseball podcast in the world that could, with the help of 7 of you, beat the Chicago White Sox. I'm Jake Mintz, and that is Jordan Shusterman, and things are going south on the south side.
Oh, yes, indeed. The White Sox, if it wasn't obvious already, continue to sink to new depths on the baseball field. We are going to recap the weekend that was in Major League Baseball. The only team that got swept this weekend was the Chicago White Sox. And Jake, I have a feeling it won't be the last time. We will give you our thoughts on all 15 series from the weekend. Of course, it is Jackie Robinson Day. We're going to begin with some thoughts on that, and then we will hit some news that we did not get to on Friday when we were very, very deep into the IRS special report regarding Ippei and Shohei. I don't think we're going to talk too much about Ippei and Shohei on this episode, which is fine, I think.
Let's just get it out of the way right now, okay? Ippei was brought in. Okay, he had shackles around his ankles. He paid bail. He surrendered his passport and was ordered not to have any contact with Shohei Ohtani. Great. All right.
Yeah,
did it.
That's so he'll get sentenced at some point. He'll go to court, and we'll get more details whenever that happens, which is not happening imminently. So that is where that story is at now. But Jake, let's begin with the day that it is, the day on the calendar, April 15th, Jackie Robinson Day. Jake, I will say that this is a day as important as it is. It does often kind of sneak up on me as we're settling into the regular season. And then, suddenly we have this day where all the teams are playing and everyone's wearing 42. It's like, all right, yes, awesome, good. Now, again, this is as it could be its own podcast on its own. There will be a lot of fantastic writing about Jackie Robinson Day and about Jackie Robinson that I think we're going to encourage you to read and to check out today. But before we get into the baseball, did you any broad big picture thoughts you wanted to talk about here?
Yeah, I mean, I think Jackie Robinson Day is a good thing because it keeps him and his legacy in the popular consciousness, but it is in some ways a dangerous thing because it, in a lot of ways, whitewashes what his legacy was. Jackie Robinson, like a lot of people, was a complicated person who you cannot easily fit into one box. And, when you have someone like Jackie Robinson, who's like, his entire thing is to fight back against established structures, having MLB be the one who is kind of the gatekeeper is maybe not the right word, but I'm going to say it. Gatekeeper of his legacy and being tasked with making sure it lives on. There are certain elements of it that they're going to leave out and certain elements of it that they're going to kind of highlight. It's like, well, Jackie Robinson existed because your league had a bunch of racists who wouldn't let people play, wouldn't let other people like him play in the first place, right? And so I think that kind of gets lost. But I tell people when they ask me, a white dude, about Jackie Robinson, I just say, go read I Never Had It Made, which is his autobiography, to kind of hear about Jackie in his own words, which is important. Also, not the full story, right? Any autobiography is going to have some bias baked into it. But I would also recommend, and I was talking to Tyler Kepner of The Athletic about this, go read First Class Citizenship, which is a collection of letters that Jackie Robinson sent to other members of the civil rights movement. A lot of revealing things in there. I just picked that book up. I'm going to start flipping through it this week. And then friend of the show, Clinton Yates, went to Wichita a couple days ago and is going to write about that community, which had its Jackie Robinson statue stolen over the off season, I believe. So a lot to dig through, a lot to read. It's a good entryway to learning about Jackie Robinson for sure.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you mentioned what Clinton is writing about, because that is obviously a horrifying sequence of events that happened in Wichita, and kind of what that, as always, we have reminders at this time, even as it is 2024, all the ways there's still progress to be made. And one of the other things that kind of comes up often as we celebrate Jackie Robinson Day is the obvious lack of black players that we have in Major League Baseball. Last year's opening day, I believe the number was 6% of opening day rosters were, black African-American players, which is a record low, only down from the year before. Shakia Taylor, another friend of the show, she wrote about this in the Chicago Tribune, had some great quotes from Curtis Granderson, who's, of course, heavily involved in the Players Alliance and MLB's efforts to make sure that kids have access, Black kids have access all around the country to be able to have the necessary, not just resources, but access to the proper pipeline that everybody else does in order to get to the big leagues. Because it's not that the talent isn't there, it's that we're losing kids far before they even have the opportunity, to pursue their pro dreams in baseball, whether that is going through college, whether that is through high school. And so it's a complicated matter, but that's another thing that is just so important to kind of the future of our game and the diversity of the sport.
I mean, you want to look at it simply, right? So I think the percentage of African Americans in the U.S. is around 12, 13% of the population. Obviously, that's a complicated number just because of who identifies as what, but I think it's around like 12, 13. And if MLB's at 6%, that's half, right? And so that's a gap. That's a problem.
And yeah, it's a number that was as high as 20 in the 70s.
Yeah.
So,
and when you talk about the pipeline stuff, like I see that every day as someone who coaches baseball in Harlem. Like,
for sure.
And it can be as simple as, the fields uptown in New York, where there are more Black kids, are not turfed, and the fields downtown are turfed, which means this past week rained a lot on Thursday, and we had to cancel games for Harlem Little League on Saturday because one of the fields was still too wet. Whereas all the kids downtown who have turf, that field's dry, they get to play on Saturday. So it's little things like that. I know it's a very hyper-specific example, but that is something that exists in a lot of places across America. And so what I just would recommend to people is find an organization in the city or the place that you live that's doing good work, support them from the ground level. And that is a good way to help Jackie's legacy. And I'm such a dummy. The field that we had to cancel games at because it's too wet and is a crappy field is literally Jackie Robinson Park.
Yeah.
Okay. On Jackie Robinson weekend. Mm-hmm. So that the irony of that was not lost on anybody.
Yep. So again, we'll of course be, retweeting some stuff today and amplifying the stories that can tell them much better than Jake and I can. So obviously wanted to start with that and always,
I know everybody woke
cool
up this morning.
Yeah.
I know everyone woke up this morning and said, what do Jake and Jordan think about Jackie Robinson's legacy? Well, we have a couple thoughts, but mostly we're just going to kick the rock.
Yes. It is cool to see just everyone playing, and I'm sure we'll get more kind of on-field stories and players talking about it today too, which is always very cool. All right, Jake.
I hope. Do you think we get the tweet today? It's like, I hate this. I can't tell anybody apart. I'm wearing the same number.
I'm sure some people will find a way to not enjoy it.
Less of a problem now because the names are smaller.
Yeah, what's the difference, right? This is maybe an improvement that I don't even have to look at the numbers. I don't have to look at the names, right? I know sometimes I feel like some teams just go straight 42 and don't have the names but I don't know, whatever. Anyway,
no names. There's
no names, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. So this is great. We should all enjoy this more than ever before to not have to look at the stupid lettering that we have been stuck with here in 2024. All right, Jake, there was a lot of baseball this weekend. I think we watched a good amount of it. I didn't watch a ton on Sunday, but we have, as always, when we recap the weekends, we will go by in order of the results in terms of the sweeps, sometimes the mops, the splits. We have a couple splits, 2 4-game series, and then just the regular series wins. We're just going to go in kind of a random order, but we will begin with the team that won all 3 games, and that is the Cincinnati Reds, who went to the Chicago White Sox. Listen, I know this wasn't the premier series of the weekend, but when you sweep, you get to be talked about first. The Reds, who have had kind of an uneven start to the season, which I've, of course, seen up close. They've been dealing with a lot of injuries on the offensive side. This is for many teams, is going to be an opportunity to get right, even on the road in Chicago, where the Chicago White Sox continue to be very, very bad. I think it is very clear this is the worst team in baseball. I don't even really think it's particularly close at this point. Long way to go. Maybe they'll change our mind. But where do you want to begin with this series? I do want to read this email we got that really set the tone, but where do you want to begin?
I got a call from a friend last week who's feeling a little bit down, a little stuck in a rut. And I was saying like, oh, man, what do you do when you feel overwhelmed? Like, oh, you should go for a run. Like, oh, you should, go outside to get right. I should have just told them to play the White Sox, because there's no easier way to get back to your true self than to play the 2024 Chicago White Sox. The Reds winning 11-1, 5-0, and 11-4 on Sunday. The Reds are like, whenever there's a sweep, usually either a team swept or a team got swept, and like that's the headline. And for me, the White Sox got swept and the Reds happened to be the foil, with all due respect. And I think now is a good time to kick it to this email we got from Jeffrey. This is titled Field Report from the South Side.
So he sent us this email on Friday night after the series opener. So go ahead. This is from Jeffrey.
Hello, Jake, Mintz, and Jordan Shusterman, the BBQ guys, as you are called. I was visiting Chicago this weekend and am here with the field report from the South Side. And guys, it is not looking good. I showed up 20 minutes late, bought really cheap tickets, and was immediately able to sit wherever. I was a true visitor who was just there because I'd never been to the stadium before. And I was wearing my Chris Davis jersey to fully embrace the suck, and boy, did the Sox deliver. I saw Ellie De La Cruz launch a 3-run homer. That guy is good at baseball, if you didn't know. And then the guy batting after him also hit a homer, which was nice, but less cool than when Ellie did it. On the other side, the cleanup hitter for the Sox was Kevin Pillar. Also, Paul DeYoung is on the team. The last time I saw him play in person was 2 summers ago when he was on the AAA Redbirds, and they were playing the Nashville Sounds while I was in town. And I was like, what is Paul DeYoung doing here? He's an MLB player. Then I pulled up his BREF and said, oh, that makes sense. So good for him. He's on a major league roster, I guess. So then skip a while into the game, and there is some sell the team chants in the top of the 8th. Then in the bottom of the 8th, Martin Maldonado, who's 9 in the hole tonight, and batting .08, comes up to bat, and a group of fellows start chanting MVP. So that was fun. The fans are there doing the best they can, and it was so fun to watch them be excited for literally anything. And they're passionately arguing with the umps. The South Side loves ball, and I hope they can be excited for it again as soon as possible. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Jeffrey, for that field report from the South Side. I will say he gets at the general spirit here. All due respect to the major league players trying their best for the Chicago White Sox. However, Jake, these are truly some of the worst lineups I've ever seen in my life. Like Pillar, Lennon Sosa, Paul DeYoung, Zach Remillard, Dominic Fletcher, Martin Maldonado as your 4 through 9. Man, yeah. Like listen, it's not like I'm like begging to watch Andrew Benintendi, get in the box, but oh my gosh. Now, look, again, this was the plan, right? They've had a million injuries. In addition to that, there are 3 players that we would have actually wanted to watch hit. Eloy Moncada and Luis Robert are all injured. So that's kind of how we got here. If those guys were playing, they'd still be one of the worst teams in baseball. But yeah, I mean, listen, this is going to happen to a couple teams every season. This was part of the plan. But it's tough, and I really do feel for the White Sox. And we're going to get to the Tommy Pham part of this. I know they signed Tommy Pham this weekend. Let's talk about that a little bit later on. As for the Reds, good for them. This is what you should do when you go play the White Sox. They go to the Mariners now to look to take advantage of another team with horrific vibes. All right, Jake, let's move on. Anything else on the White Sox?
Oh, wait, yes. Robbie Grossman, who, again, like Robbie Grossman, nice guy. We made fun of him last week because he was a bit of a hardo when it came to the eclipse and said he needed to get ready. There was a play in yesterday's game, I believe, where he dropped a ball or like misplayed a ball as he was running from the sun into the shade. And it was clear that affected his ability to wrangle in the baseball. And maybe if he was out there looking at the sun, he might have had a better shot at this play.
He would have been more familiar.
Yeah.
Oh, it's that big thing in the sky. All right, let's move to our series victories, our non-sweeps. I don't know what order this is in, but we begin in Miami, where the Marlins almost had this one. They were 1 strike away with Tanner Scott on the mound, and Marcell Ozuna said, no, sorry. You're the Marlins in 2024, which means you are going to lose a 1-run game instead of win it. What are we thinking about the Atlanta Braves? We'll talk about Strider later on, but how are we feeling about where they're at? Because they've had some moments of shakiness, but also some moments where it's like, yes, that's still the Braves.
They're They're really good. Like the lineup is just as good. Marcelo Zuna has been superb yet so far this year. I think like Acuna has been kind of just fine. He hasn't been horrible. He hasn't been great. But the Braves lineup, I think they have the best WRC plus as a team in baseball. Olsen's been amazing. Albies has been amazing. Orlando Arcia has been amazing. Kelnick is raking. Like, they're really good. The pitching I'm a little bit more worried about. It was good to see Max Fried shove in the first game of that series on Friday. But Morton and Sale, like, I know they're both very accomplished, and I know Sale's kind of looked rejuvenated in some ways, but they're also 35 and 40. So
yeah, when they're good, they're accomplished. When they're bad, they're old.
Mm-hmm.
That's you just make that adjustment depending.
Accomplished you're right. Accomplished is a funny way to say it. One thing about the Marlins, they will be hosting the Chicago White Sox on July 5th, 6th, and 7th in Miami.
That could be that right. Those could be the two worst records in baseball at that point. But yeah, the Marlins they've at least showed a little bit more fight, but still finding ways to lose these baseball games. But I will say that the Milwaukee Brewers, who are averaging, I will say this, they've scored the exact same number of runs in the exact same number of games as the Atlanta Braves, both averaging 6.5 runs per game this season. This Brewers team, but they were, it was like, damn, are they about to sweep the Orioles? William Contreras hits the second pitch from Corbin Burns over the fence, but the Battling Birds make sure that does not happen. They have a good win on Sunday. Where do you want to begin with the series?
I want to talk about Milwaukee's offense. Like, I've been very impressed. William Contreras is a freaking baller.
Yeah.
Like
I'm writing about him this week at Yahoo. That'll be out either today or tomorrow, and he's one of the best catchers in the league. It's not you could say he's the best catcher in the league, and I would not be like, you're wrong.
Yeah. But I would say the most notable thing with the Brewers offense is the so far rejuvenation of Christian Yelich, who is obliterating the baseball and looks pretty good doing it. I've been the low skeptical Deborah Downer on Mr. Yelich, and I would love to be wrong.
Yeah. He is injured now, so he left with some back pain, and looks like he might be going on the IL, but he has looked spectacular. He looked great since when I saw him last week. But, Reese is doing his thing. Willie Adames is doing his thing. Like, these younger guys, the infielders, right? The fact that Terang's been hitting and Joey Ortiz. Churio has been fine for the youngest player, someone born in 2004. He's totally holding his own. He hasn't gotten going yet either. To that point, just on the Jackson beat, Jackson Holiday finally gets his first hit. It seems like he's not going to go hitless for his entire career, so that's good to see. And yeah, the real story for the Orioles is Colton Cowser. Holy crap.
Yeah, so Colton Cowser, who 5th overall pick in 2021 out of Sam Houston State, and I was admittedly, for a lot of the minor league tenure, the low guy on him. And I say that even as someone who personally, I love this dude. Like, awesome cat, very fun to talk to, unique, interesting, smart guy. But I just, as the profile, like, I didn't think he was going to be good enough in center to stick out there. And I didn't think he was going to hit for enough power in a corner. And last year, he underwhelmed in a small showing in the big leagues. And when the Orioles made the trade for Corbin Burns, I hypothesized that he was going to be in that deal. He then made fun of me for that when I saw him, because you saw the video of me drunkenly trading him to a different team. And so far this year, he has a 316 OPS plus. He is hitting 441, 474, 971. He has home runs in each of his last 4 games. He has looked outstanding. He looked amazing in spring. And he has slowly supplanted Austin Hayes as the Orioles' everyday left fielder. And he went yard in all 3 games of the series, even though the Orioles lost it.
I think just like the raw power that he's shown. I think he has the hardest hit ball of the Orioles season. I think that was the one in Boston.
He hit one 438 in Boston.
Yeah, like he's shit. That was my kind of question, because generally the OBP skills have mostly been there. How much, raw power we're really going to see from him. And man, he's off to an incredible start, and just a reminder of the Orioles' embarrassment of riches.
Do you know about the cow thing that they're doing with him?
I have noticed. It's
So I was super low on this. I got to be honest. So his name is Colton Cowser, COW, like a cow. And so on opening day, all the Orioles fans mooed him when he ran out. They moo. I thought this was dorky and cheesy. I didn't like it at first. But then he started raking. And there's really, like, now he's the milkman. And that's fine. I told Colton that he should get like a cow print arm sleeve.
I feel like this required it to be a goofy goober like Holden Cowser. Like, I don't think every player would embrace this in a way that
I don't know if he's necessarily embraced it, like, but he certainly like hasn't come out and said, "Stop mooing me."
Hey, mooing's better than booing, baby. Let's
mooing's
move on to.
But just quickly, I want to give the Brewers their due. Like, this team has been better than I thought they would be so far, especially because just this offense is raking. I don't think this offense is this good. Bryce Terang is not a 150 OPS plus level guy, but they're probably better than we thought on the offensive side of the ball. So they deserve their flowers there. Let's move to Cleveland, where the Guardians hosted the Yankees for a 3-game set. The Yankees taking 2 out of 3, almost getting the sweep, but the Guardians battling back on Sunday. A couple different things here. First of all, before the season, we had a conversation like, who is the third best hitter on the Yankees after Soto and Judge and Soto, right? And it's really looking like it's Anthony Volpe.
Yeah, I mean, he's batting leadoff now. He has the huge double to tie it in this game where they come back and then still end up losing. I was kind of surprised how quickly they kind of launched him to the top of the lineup. It's not like, some of these other guys aren't hitting. I mean, I know Oswaldo's been great. I don't think we could argue with a straight face. He's their third best hitter. Listen, Glaber has been by far the most disappointing so far. I know I was the highest on him coming into this season. I'll be patient there. If it's Volpe, great, right? It's not that inconceivable, but
it's early.
It's
early, but he's third in WAR, in BREF WAR, behind Mookie Betts and Bobby Witt Jr. So, like,
I mean, he's hitting 380 and he's got more walks and strikeouts. Like, and it looks right. He's outperforming his ex-Woba slightly, but I don't know, man. Maybe it is him, but they have some other options here. If Volpe cools off, presumably they're going to get the rest of this. I mean, Rizzo's the other one who's been kind of inconsistent. I know there's been some worries about the defense for the Yankees, but in general, they look like one of the best teams in baseball. So I don't think it's that complicated.
Let's briefly touch on the goofy Sunday play.
So Nestor Cortes, known for his hezzies, both him and Marcus Stroman. I know Johnny Cueto, right? He sort of started doing this where at some point during your windup, you can pause and do some shimmying without it being a balk, as long as you haven't, fully stopped your delivery and are still in the motion. What Nestor Cortes Jr. did on Sunday is so funny and so ridiculous. Basically, he does the standard Nestor hesitation where he goes
pauses the leg.
He pauses the leg. We've seen that many times. And then as he's balancing, he basically pump fakes the baseball. He takes the ball out of his glove. To call it a fake throw is a bit of an exaggeration because he kind of just pushes it forward and then puts it back in his glove and then falls down and delivers it. This is not me saying this is bad and I hate Nestor Cortes. What is the purpose of this? Because the reason it was so funny about this is the notion that this pump fake, in the way that, like, if you pump fake on like a 3-pointer, that the defender is going to like jump and fly past you. It's not like Andres Jimenez was going to swing the bat after he did this. Like that what is the best case scenario for this? I know he fouled off the pitch. It is so funny. I embrace it. I would love to see him come up with all kinds of, but functionally, what do you think he was hoping was going to happen here?
I think, first of all, I thought this was a balk. I did. And I'm not saying it's a sham or an embarrassment. I'm pro Nestor doing anything. I genuinely thought you could not do this. And I guess I'm wrong. Or the umps are wrong. One of us was wrong. The purpose of this is that no one has ever done this. And so if you're in the batter's box and someone does this, you are thrown not necessarily because of like the trickery of the pump fake, but out of sheer confusion, right? If I got to my leg lift and then I like took my pants off or started doing the chicken dance,
and it somehow wasn't a buck.
Yeah. And it wasn't a buck. You would be confused. And
it would be.
It clearly worked here because it was a foul ball, I guess.
Yeah.
Very bizarre.
So
go,
funny.
Nestor, go. Let your freak flag fly. I don't think there's like as much utility to the Hezzies as you think, because most hitters are just going off of when the ball leaves the hand.
Yes.
Now, I do think quick pitching is more effective than this.
Totally.
But if Nestor is good, he can do whatever he wants. I don't care. It's great.
Well, and that's the thing. That's another one of those things where this is exactly an example of 0% chance he tries this if his ERA is 8 and the Yankees are 500. it's just, which is fine. That's good. That's probably how it should be. It's fine. I embrace it. So if the Yankees keep winning, maybe Nestor will keep breaking out some wacky stuff. But there was all kinds of wacky stuff in this game. We got Florial with some heroics late. We got an incredible double play from the Guardians. Their defense was much better than the Yankees.
I've never seen a double play like that. That I can remember. Basically, runners on second and third, 1 out. Little grounder to the first baseman, fires home, tag at home. Bo Naylor, the catcher, spins around and then gets the force out at first base. You often see like the double play where it's home to first with the force, but I've never seen the tag and then the throw to first base. That was amazing. And it's a great reminder, like Bo Naylor can do things that other people cannot do.
And the Yankees are a slow baseball team. That is a very slow baseball team. Juan Soto is not going to help that. I just think Cleveland's pretty good. Steven Kwan looks awesome. Very excited to see them. I'm going to see them this weekend, actually. I'm going to be at Guardians A's, see the mighty Oakland A's. Speaking of mighty Oakland A's, let's just do them next. Why not? Let's do the Oakland A's next. The A's take a series from the Nats. The A's 3 consecutive series wins, first time since 2021. Listen, I said this before the season. Are they bad? Yeah. Are they the worst team in baseball? I don't think so. And I think that they could be spunky. I have enjoyed watching them so much more than last year, and it's not even close, despite everything that's going on off the field, despite how empty the stadium is. I enjoy watching this team. Of course, I wish Esteury Ruiz was on the team as well. I think he'll be back up soon. But hey, they got some guys, and on the mound, they've been like really competent. Their offensive numbers are still pretty ugly, but they got some guys that I'm enjoying watching. Chuck the Rock and Mason Miller is at the top of the list.
Kudos to everybody involved with the Major League on-field product. The coaches, the players, the support staff. They're not the ones not funding the operation. They're not the ones picking it up and moving it to a different city. They're going out there every day and doing their best to win ball games. And so far this year, they've done a very commendable job of that. It is not easy to try and block out all those distractions and focus on the field. And I've been very impressed. All this story needs, I need John Fisher to be like, if they get to 85 wins, then maybe I'll keep the team here.
He sets the win total to be like, you know what? It's more than just Zach Geloff. We got to start getting some Mason Miller shout outs. I mean, come on. This dude's throwing 103 past the best hitters on earth, and he's making it look easy. So
all we got to do, once Aaron Judge comes to town and hits home runs off Mason Miller, that'll really get butts and seats.
That's true. Oh, boy. Anyway, the A's, better than the Nationals, apparently. So good for them.
Jordan, let's take a quick break. And when we return, we'll go through the rest of these games and hop into our news and notes. And welcome back to Baseball Barbacast. Jake Mintz, Jordan Shusterman.
Sure.
Tried to say Houston. Let's start there. Let's resume our weekend update. The Astros, who were scuffling and not looking great, did take a series against the Rangers. Very important, taking 2 or 3 from them. But I think we need to talk about Ronel Blanco.
Yeah, I mean, when they lost on Friday, they were down. I guess they sort of came back. They lost 12-8 on Friday to drop to 4-11. I mean, it was like full blown, like, how are they getting this back on the rails? And then Jose Altuve said, I got you. Jose Altuve currently leading Major League Baseball in WRC+. He is amazing. I love Jose Altuve. I know some people won't like him forever, and that's fine. He's one of the most amazing baseball players I've ever seen. That's Jose Altuve. We know Jose Altuve. Ronel Blanco, we are still processing what in the world we are watching here. And I mean, maybe would it be that shocking? Again, we've seen a version of this 50 times over with some of these Astros pitchers where it's like, oh, like he's a nice pitcher. Oh, wow, it's a really nice development story that he's like a major league pitcher. And then suddenly you're like, wait a minute. He's just like a good major league pitcher. He's not just like a nice to have around. Would it be that implausible if he's that? I mean, he's a very interesting approach. It's a lot of changeups. It's a lot of soft contact. What has been your impression watching him so far?
Very enjoyable. It's definitely a zag. You know, we talk about guys throwing 99 and walking the farm. Like Blanco doesn't have great command necessarily. Like he still does rack up his walks, but the soft contact approach is fun. Fastball changeup combo from a righty is always a good aesthetic that I really like. And it's bizarre because now they need him. Like if the Astros were just chugging along, it'd be like, wow, and they have Ronel Blanco. But now it's like, wow, good thing they have Ronel Blanco.
Yes, well said, well said. And as for the Rangers, I mean, they are about as injured as any team we have right now. Brock Burke punched a wall. He's out. He did punch the wall with his non-pitching hand, but he still broke his hand, so he's still going to miss some time. Cody Bradford is injured now, and he was off to a good start to the season. Their lineup is decimated. It seems like we might be seeing Jack Leiter sooner rather than later, and he's actually looked pretty good in the minor leagues. Their offense is still so good that they're going to be okay, but this is a injured group.
If I was running a baseball team, I would tape a couch cushion to the tunnel down to the clubhouse. We punch this when we're mad. That's what we do in this program, okay? Because guys are going to want to punch the wall. You just got to give them the right spot to do it. Blake Snell returned to Tropicana Field and Tampa over the weekend and was greeted, not warmly, the Rays taking 2 out of 3, winning the rubber match against the San Francisco Giants. 2 bombs on Sunday for Rays catcher Rene Pinto. 2 things I'd like to talk about here. Number one is the Rays bullpen panic level. So we have come to know the Tampa Rays for being a bullpen of magic, right? Able to conjure up good relievers out of thin air. And so far this season, the Rays have the worst bullpen ERA in baseball. As a group, they have a 6.23 ERA. Their FIP is only somewhat lower than that at 5.91. It is bizarre to see. Is this concern for you? Do you think that they know what they're doing and it'll just win out in the end?
Yeah, I think yes. I mean, they're not
yes to
this
what?
bad, but like I'm looking at the names and like besides Fairbanks, how many of them am I like, he's definitely way better than that?
So that's always the case with the Rays, to be clear. And Fairbanks' numbers are skewed because he gave up a grand slam.
Yep.
Right. And when you're a reliever and you give up a grand slam, like that's your month.
You're toast for 3 weeks. Yeah.
And so I think Tyler Alexander was nails yesterday in relief. Like he apparently looked pretty good. It's a bizarre group, but it's always a bizarre group. And so I just don't know what to think. It's probably a small sample size. I think we talk about it in a month. Other thing I want to talk about with this series, Jorge Soler is rocking the Barry Bonds dangly cross earring.
I mean, good for him. He needs to bring any sort of life into this Giants offense, which has been thus far, despite having new names in it, pretty the same as last year in a very unexciting way. And so, listen, I'm still on this team. I still think they can be pretty good. Not the most encouraging weekend. They're 6-10. Soler's doing his part. Soler is there to hit balls farther than you're supposed to hit balls and to look good doing it.
Him being the guy who's going to hit 30 home runs for the Giants with the dangly cross, Barry Bonds style, I like that vibe. That's a good vibe. Speaking of good vibes, psych, the Red Sox won a series. They are 9-7. I've never been so confused about a team's energy and the way that fans are talking about them. There's just like anger and joy. They're the most bizarre 9-7 team ever. Tyler O'Neill is so good. Good for him. I think he's leading the league in homers.
Oh yeah,
right now.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you at with the Red Sox? I'm not really sure what to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously they've had a good number of injuries as well that have made it difficult to get too excited. But they are swinging back and forth. They are very much the it's over, we're back meme just personified. And I know a lot of fan bases like to say that they are that over the course of a Major League Baseball regular season, but the Red Sox have to take the cake for that so far this year, just based on how dire it seems on a day-to-day basis. And then they win, and O'Neill hits another home run, and you're like, oh, they can't stop us. Cassis has started to look really good. That's another thing that's kind of carried over after maybe a slow first handful of games. So listen, they're right there. They haven't fallen too deep of a hole. I know that there's reasons to be. They got a big series this weekend at home against Cleveland. Pittsburgh, Cleveland are the next 3 series for them, which would not have maybe seemed like a particularly, high profile matchup, but based on the early season results, I am excited to see how those go for them.
Quick Angels thing. Carson Fulmer, former first round pick.
Yeah.
With the White Sox out of Vanderbilt in 2015. We're so old. Has had a very tumultuous up and down, really just down big league career. Never able to stay healthy. Came up at the very end of last season with the Angels and looked pretty good in a short stint. Through 4 scoreless innings of relief on Sunday. Anything resembling a Carson Fulmer renaissance would just be an unbelievable story. Really rooting for that guy.
Yep. Angels starting pitching. Anderson looks much better. Detmers is their best pitcher. Ohapi looks good. There are some things going well for the Angels. They might be heading right towards 500 again, but if they could even get 1 game over it, it would be a smashing success based on recent seasons. We now move to Colorado and Toronto, where the Toronto Blue Jays took care of business over the weekend. Jose Barrios is looking like one of the best pitchers in the American League. I saw Keegan Matheson, the Blue Jays beat writer, tweeting about how this is the best he thinks that Barrios has looked as a Blue Jay. And he's had one of the stranger sequences of years, because what Barrios has been is so durable. He's basically not missed a start in 5, 6, 7 years, and yet his performance has fluctuated. Are we going to overreact to him looking good against the Blue Jays or against the Rockies away from Colorado? No, but it is nice to see how he's pitched.
ERA 1.05. xERA 5.61. I would just FIP 3.68. Like he's not. No one is a 1.05 ERA starter, but he will come back to earth a little bit. But anything more than what he was like a couple of years ago when he just turned into a pumpkin is a huge win for the Blue Jays. Don't have a whole lot else to say about the series, I'm going to be honest with you.
Nope. Good for them. The Mets and the Royals. I know you stopped by the clubhouse on Friday, I believe. I don't think you went to any of these other games. But the Mets, Mets taking a series. Good to see them against the mighty Kansas City Royals. First of all, Bobby Witt Jr. is just, he's one of the best players in baseball now, and it's not even close. He looks the part. He is everything that you could possibly want him to be. But how about the Mets? We wanted to say, all right, well, that's it. Sorry, they stink. I don't think we can do that quite yet. There's still some things on this roster where I'm like, there's no way this team's good. But they got enough. They got enough going on. They're going to be okay, right?
Yeah, Pete's hitting the ball over the fence. And most importantly, Jordan, Edwin Diaz with his first home save of the year.
Finally.
They were up 2-0 in the 9th. The trumpets boop bop booped. He came running in from the pen. He gave up a solo homer to Vinny Pasquantino and locked it down. So we are currently at 3 trumpets with no saves and losses versus 1 trumpet save. Where will we be at the end of the year? Only time will tell. But the Mets are pretty good. And I'll just say, being around Bobby Witt Jr. and talking to him for a bit on Friday, and I've sat down with him, I think, each of the last 3 years when he's in New York. He is just getting more mature, and he's going to be so good at being the superstar in the city. And it's so cool. It's so cool. He's the man. If the Orioles weren't what they are right now, I would be like, should the Orioles have taken Bobby Witt instead of Adley Rutschman? But I've already
seen those takes floating around, but listen, it's okay. We don't have to, not everything has to be that spicy. We can all just enjoy the great baseball players.
Both are good.
That are doing great baseball things.
Speaking of great baseball players, what is going on in Seattle?
They're bad. Can we just not talk about the series? Yeah, no, the Mariners are
Yeah.
really bad right now. They are like statistically in terms of like worst OPS plus and worst ERA plus, they are basically down there with like the White Sox, which is super embarrassing. They're still ahead of the Astros in the standings, so I don't really know why everyone's freaking out. But they are going to have to figure something out quickly because they just look terrible. Now, they've been slow starters in recent years before, but and they're being bailed out by the rest of the division kind of being a bit of a mess. But no, there's really no way around it. They just look really bad. I don't really have. I mean,
Julio looks horrendous.
Yeah. So Julio, that's really the takeaway from this weekend. If you weren't watching, basically Julio's looked really bad, and so Scott Service was like, "All right, he's going to have an off day on Sunday. He needs a mental break." It's like, fine, totally fine with that. I have no issue. That's good. He's like, "We're going to stay away from him as a pinch hitter." Okay, great. Like, give Julio a day off. It's a long season. That sounds great. And then Cal Raleigh gets on base as the game tying run in the bottom of the ninth, and they put him on. And it's like, well, like Julio's fast. Like maybe we don't want to have him go up there and have a bad at bat, but he is fast. It would be nice to have a fast runner instead of Cal Raleigh. It could maybe be the game tying run. And then because what is happening with the Mariners is anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Julio promptly gets picked off to end the game, which is not the mental break that he was probably looking for. So that's the Seattle Mariners. The Cubs, here's what I'll say about the Cubs. Imanaga looks very good. Michael Busch looks excellent. And I was very high on both of these guys, Michael Busch especially, but Michael Busch looking this good is a big, big, big deal and a potentially massive, massive development for that offense. You could use Michael Busch, the Dodgers. Is that crazy? Is that a crazy thing to say? As we go to Los Angeles, where the Padres take a series from the Dodgers. How about that? Good for the Padres. We got some spice on Saturday. Gavin Stone is throwing a perfect game. He comes up and in on Jurickson Profar. Jurickson Profar gets all pissy and he's like, "Who are you trying to hit me?" They're like, "Why would we try to hit you? It's a perfect game," which Profar, I guess, didn't seem to notice because he tried to bunt earlier in the at-bat. After the game, Will Smith is asked about it. Will Smith says, "I don't know why we would throw at him. He's kind of irrelevant." Damn, he hasn't been looking at how Jurickson Profar has been like the Padres' best hitter this season. And then the next day, Jurickson Profar hits a big double, bases clearing double, I believe, on Sunday Night Baseball. Everyone is calling him Mr. Irrelevant. It is a wonderful sequence of events. The Dodgers are still very good. However, the bottom of their lineup has been horrible. Really, really bad. Their bottom of their lineup has been as bad as the top of their lineup has been good, which hasn't canceled it out, but it has at least prompted a level of, oh, that's a little bit concerning. They'll be fine, but with Bobby Miller also injured again, not injured again, but that's another hard-throwing pitcher that is injured. Dodgers are having some moments of adversity here, and good for the Padres to have some good vibes coming out of this series win at Dodger Stadium.
I mean, to me, it's simple. Enrique Hernandez and Chris Taylor, this is not 2018 anymore.
Yeah.
I think Taylor especially is cooked.
He
looks
awful.
Completely toast.
And then Lux, man, it hurts. It hurts to say. I mean, the guy's hitting, 163, 226, 184 with one extra base hit. And Outman has been struggling as well. But yeah, the Taylor and Kike, it's not happening. So
no. I want to give a shout out to Jake Cronenworth, who looks like a whole new ball player.
That's great.
He is ripping it at the plate. Unbelievable defensively. He made just phenomenal diving catches on Saturday and on Sunday. That is a huge development for the Padres, just to have him as their third banana. Like that's awesome. Last 2-1 series of the weekend. The Diamondbacks taking 2 out of 3 from the Cardinals. I watched none of this, admittedly. Cardinals offense is kind of brutal right now. Paul Goldschmidt does not look good. Basically everyone but Ivan Herrera, Brandon Donovan, and Mason Wynn is struggling.
Yeah.
And I guess Contreras.
Nootbaar is back. Contreras is injured. Nootbaar is back, and that is a huge deal. Like he is just such a big part of that lineup, and like I think that will eventually pay. But again, like if Goldie and Arenado are going to stink, like they're toast before the season even gets off the ground. So yeah. To me, it's kind of that simple. Arizona, basic series win. They've also had some serious bullpen issues as well. but they are also staying afloat in the NL West.
Speaking of Lars Nootbaar, Jordan, do you have any interest in him in fantasy?
I guess I have Sal Frelick right now in center. Oh, we'll discuss. We'll take it off the air.
Okay.
I might.
Because I stashed him on my IL. Now he's healthy. I got to figure out an extra guy. And because we built a league where there's no bench, the guy comes off the IL, it's like a problem.
That's true. All right. We'll correspond. 2 splits. We had 2 4-game series over the weekend. These were kind of rain impacted. Detroit and Minnesota. We had a doubleheader on Saturday. But they split this series. Minnesota, Detroit. I don't know. Like I'm with Kansas City and Cleveland playing this well. I'm watching Detroit and Minnesota closely, being like, come on, guys, like give me something. Give me something to I wanna think that this is gonna be like a really fun race, and like they keep going back and forth. And in this series, I ended up feeling like I didn't make any progress with this split with either of these teams.
I think I agree with you. Javi Baez has no walks. Which is just amazing. Javi Baez, we should just let's save him. It's just a whole thing. He stinks at the plate. My favorite moment of this series was one of the Saturday games, I think it was. Zach McKinstry was playing third base for the Tigers in the top of an extra inning, and with the bases loaded and I think 1 or 2 outs, ball goes through his legs, all the runs score. It's like, well, the Tigers are going to lose. And like immediately AJ Hinch goes out there because they have no arms left because it's the second game of a doubleheader, and they put McKinstry into pitch. And it was like he got punished for making an error and was like, oh, you don't want to play defense for your pitchers? Well, why don't you try to do it?
This is what you get. 2 Tigers things. So funny. 2 Tigers things before we move on to our final series. One, Jason Foley is one of the best relievers in baseball. So just wanted to say that. He was last year and nobody noticed, but he's ridiculous, throwing even harder. The second thing is I am just still recalibrating wanting to turn on the Tigers because of our dear friend Jason Benetti.
Yeah.
All due respect to the previous Tigers broadcast, they were now part of it because the team was bad and not interesting too. As far as MLB TV power rankings, they were could pretty consistently bottom 5 over the last 3, 4, 5 years. Now they're top 5 because I just love Jason Benetti so much, and I'm still like my instinct whenever I pull up a Tigers game is to put on the other team's broadcast, and now it is absolutely the opposite. I love you, Jason, so much. All right, last series in the great state of Pennsylvania, the Pirates and Phillies. Andrew McCutchen finally hits his 300th home run. He's been waiting to do this for a long time. A couple Pirates fans ended up catching the ball, getting to meet Kutch after the game. The videos of that was absolutely amazing. Andrew McCutchen, one of the great human beings we have in our sport, and also a reminder as he gets to 300 home runs, one of the great careers of his generation. He is the definition of Hall of Very Good. He's pretty near the top of Hall of Very Good. I mean, my gosh, I know injuries, and he kind of slowed down as he bounced around a few teams in the middle of his career. Just a sensational ball player, and great to see him finally get to this milestone because he's Kutch. He's the absolute man.
Yep. Okay. Those were all the games. Phillies offense is not good right now, except for Brandon Marsh. They do this every year. They hibernate and then they pop up. Jordan, we have been talking for about 48 minutes, I think. Mm-hmm. We have a number of other topics just to fly through here. Mm-hmm. I'd like to begin with Tommy Pham, actually.
Sure.
Tommy Pham, who is a unique character in our game in that he says what is on his mind, which is so refreshing. Shouts out. Tommy Pham, who was hitting 4th often for the National League champion Arizona Diamondbacks in the postseason last year, did not have a ball club until this weekend when he was signed on a minor league contract with the Chicago White Sox, which is not fair. Yes, he is 35 years old, or 36 years old. This guy still rakes. And I think there are a lot of teams who could use him that aren't the White Sox. Now, why are the White Sox signing Tommy Pham? Because they hope he bops and then they're going to trade him for a prospect in a couple of weeks.
I think that's what Tommy Pham hopes as well.
Yes.
I think Tommy Pham, who will probably immediately be hitting 3rd or 4th or 2nd, somewhere in the top of the lineup for the White Sox, is probably saying, yeah, all right, I'll go to some crappy team and hit for them, and then they'll trade me because it worked out for him last year, right? But it is weird. It is weird. And Brandon Belt's still a free agent. I mean, my God, like I don't. There are teams we just talked about a lot of them, teams with offenses that are in dire need of anything. And he's one that made sense months ago and makes sense now. It's a little disappointing that the White Sox are the team that's doing it, but I hope he ends up on a contender because Tommy Pham is great, and I encourage everyone to go look at his Twitter.
The White Sox are just they love spending, so that's probably what it is.
Yes.
Spencer Strider out for the year.
Yeah,
super unfortunate. Not Tommy John technically. I think it's an internal brace surgery. Whatever it is, they opened up his elbow and they went inside with tools. As far as I am concerned, that is significant enough. He will not throw until next season. It sucks just for the sport. Strider is a unique presence as a person, a unique watch as a pitcher. I picked him to win the National League MVP. That is probably not going to happen at this point. I would almost certainly not. And for the Atlanta Braves, I think it just, like, they're going to be in the playoffs, right? It's just creates concern over what the playoff rotation is going to look like.
Yeah. However,
which is a crazy thing to say on April 15th. I understand that. But when you're talking about the Braves, that's what we're talking about.
Right. And the other thing is, as will be mentioned many times by us and others, remember when Ronald Acuña's leg blew out and then they won the World Series? It's like, they can do this. Now, it's a bigger deal for the pitching staff, right? And it's the same thing because not only because of what this pitching staff looks like, but because it's just a lot more delicate when we're talking about pitching depth and replacing guys like that. Whereas, not that you could replace Acuña, but when your lineup is what it is, and even when they won without him, it was kind of, it took a pretty wild sequence of events to make it happen. With that being said, I mean, we talked about it earlier with guys like Sale and Morton who have shown their age at times. Fried, we really need to see him get going. I'm not worried about him, assuming he can stay healthy. Reynaldo Lopez has looked awesome. I know it's only been 2 starts. Him and Jordan Hicks looking as good as they have has been one of the stories of the season so far, I would just say. So credit to both of those teams for making that decision when we were all like, what the hell are you thinking? But I'm really excited to see, because they're going to need more guys like this. They're going to need Smith Shawver. They're going to need Bryce Elder again, whether it is, Huascar Ynoa, whether it is Hurston Waldrop, if they really want to, go really aggressive at some point this season. Some of those guys are going to step up in a big way. They always have for Atlanta, and I'm curious to see who those end up being.
Right. And it's, can they take enough steps forward to feel good about starting them in a playoff series, right? Because right now it's Fried, Sale, Morton, Lopez. Right? Now, are all of those guys going to be healthy come October? Who's to say? And could, like, Smith, Shawver, or Elder come up and give enough confidence to start them in October? TBD. Let's move on to Jordan Montgomery, a pitcher who the Braves could use right now. Jordan Montgomery was a story of the offseason. Last year, he was spectacular down the stretch with the Rangers, postseason hero, threw well for them in October. Didn't throw well in the World Series, but ended up winning with the Rangers. Free agent, going to make a lot of money. Scott Boras is his agent, and he signs a 1-year, $25 million deal like 2 days before opening day. And he's part of the Scott Boras. The agent had a bad offseason, did not get his guys the money that they were looking for or they were expecting. And Jordan Montgomery told Scott Boras, thanks for the memories, and I'm going to move on.
Yeah, and this is something, again, we've mostly seen this in the other direction, where guys approaching free agency, or even Luis Robert, I believe, recently signed with Boras like in the last year or so, I believe. Now, he's a long way from free agency, but normally it's the other way around. It's like, all right, you ready to get paid? Time to switch to Boras. And that has been a tried and true method. And now to have a kind of the opposite happen after not getting what he was seeking, I think it also speaks to what Jordan Montgomery will maybe be seeking either this winter or next. His contract this year has a very likely to be vested player option, depending on how many innings he gets to. But it could be a situation where he believes he's going to throw well enough that he could hit the market again and actually sign the 3, 4, 5, 6-year deal that he was seeking at a number that is not Scott Boras asking for $250 million, but it might be like, so many teams would have given Jordan Montgomery $100 million at some point this winter, right? And he was asking for probably closer to $2. and he ended up with not even close to 100, right? And so that is a sequence of events that clearly Jordan Montgomery does not want to go through again, and it's someone that he believes in himself enough that he thinks he could put himself in a position to be back on the open market. But it is an interesting development, and to see if we see anything similar, moving forward with some of these guys.
It's Boris's first series of big L's in a long time. And I think that it's a good reminder that Boris is not forever, right? He has been the best agent in the game for a while, in part because he gets his clients more money than anybody else. Now, if that stops being true, then all the other antics and the Borisisms stop losing their luster and their power and their sauce. And then you're just kind of left with a guy who makes bad puns at the winter meetings. Now, I mean, he's 71 years old, I believe. And like, maybe he could do this for another 10 years. But there's also a scenario where he retires in the next 7 years, right? And like, it's just kind of something to keep an eye on. What happens to Boris world when Boris is done is going to be just a fascinating thing to keep an eye on.
And I'm sure that there are some people that are like, why do you talk about him so much? It's because it's still relevant. And I think it's really interesting. And by the way, it's not going to be any less relevant because we got Soto and we got Pete Alonso and we got Alex Bregman, coming next winter.
And all the dudes who were just relevant could all opt out.
Yep. So it is. And again, when you're talking about players of this stature, it very much reflects and impacts the state of the league and the shape of the rosters on the best teams. Like these are all very relevant things. So it is something that we definitely find interesting, and that is why we wanted to mention it.
Last thing, I want to talk about Boban. So Boban is a big basketball boy, and he's on the Houston Rockets, and he was playing a game against somebody else. I'm very prepared to talk about this, and that place had a thing where if you miss both free throws, everyone in the stands gets free chicken. And Boban purposefully missed the second free throw because his team, the Rockets, were up late. And he was like, I'll get free chicken. And the place went crazy. And it was amazing. And that made me think of how certain baseball teams will, like the Rockies, give free tacos, I think, if they get to 7 runs. And I was like, oh, are there any baseball players who would like sauce a heater down the middle so the other team could hit a homer so the home crowd can get tacos? Is that like Adam Wainwright, Derek Jeter in the All-Star game?
I do. I mean, right. The Rockies one's been going on for a long time. Like I remember watching that in high school where just how excited they would get. They would have like the graphic at the bottom for the home games where it'd be like 3 more runs until we get tacos. It was also always funny because it's like at Coors Field, that number being as high as 7 is like so appropriate. In Seattle, it should be 2. But yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, what pitcher would, again, the reason this happened especially was because it was the last game of the season and nothing mattered anymore. So it would need to be like the last weekend in Colorado between 2 teams that were totally out of it. What personality would do it? Are the fans... Is there an equivalent to, it's not as perfect as like a missed free throw where it's like so locked in. There's so many other variables in play, but I like where your head's at.
Thank you. I like where your head's at.
Thanks, bud. That's it. We did a podcast. It was a Monday episode of Baseball Barbacast. Hope you enjoyed. You can email us at baseballbarbacast@gmail.com. We hope everyone enjoys the Jackie Robinson Day games. I guess it's also the Boston Marathon Day, so we have the 11 a.m. game that starts in like 10 minutes. But thank you all for listening. Thank you to Andrew Hartz for producing, and we will be back on Wednesday with another episode